Multiple sclerosis is a disease that affects not only the patient who has the diagnosis, but the entire network of family and friends in the social network. It's important for the family to understand the disease in order to work with the patient and to maintain the usual life activities and the important things in life. The Chester family will describe to you how they've dealt with Kathy's problems with MS and how they've come to better understand and work together as a family.
When you live with multiple sclerosis, it's so important to know that you have a team, that people who will be there no matter what happens, whatever's handed your way. And so that's why it was so important to know it was time for me to get married, that I would have that kind of team. And I certainly did. My struggles were helped at the very beginning of our marriage by my husband, who was always there for me to pick up the pieces, to help me, to take me to doctors, and to help me know that multiple sclerosis was not all that who I was, that there was so much more. And so Gary was just part of that team that made me feel like I was still part of the world.
Well, I think that the spouse and in many cases children are part of the team. It's the inner core of the team, but the team truly is the MS community. It's physicians, nurse practitioners, and it's also the national and regional organizations that support MS and do MS research. And just, I'm inspired by your courage in living as close to a normal life as possible with MS. I'm inspired every day, and that helps me become a better husband and, when necessary, a caregiver, and I've taken on many different roles. But I've also been inspired by the level of passion and care by the MS community, not just the medical part of the community, but research, the national organizations. Every year when we participate in the MS Walk, for example, we have this great feeling that we're not alone. It's not just the family. There is a huge MS community out there supporting us.
It's all the organizations that surround us, that lift us up and help us. And it's also just knowing that no matter how my disease manifests itself, that I will always have someone to rely on. And so when we decided that it was time to start a family, it was very important to talk about that before we went ahead. And we made the decision together that our child would be brought up in a way that he could not, or she could not, distinguish between ability and disability, that everybody was the same, no matter what disease would manifest itself in different people. And so when we went ahead and did that.
Well, that's a tough decision for many people with MS.
No
and
question.
we certainly thought long and hard about it. And it does put extra responsibility on your child or your children. In our case, I think our son has handled the MS with flying colors. I don't know how he feels about how it's changed his life and his responsibilities, but maybe you can tell us about that a little bit.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily changed me, other than, I am used to it. It's something that I have lived with and always accepted, and it's just as if it's supposed to be that way, because I never held me back from anything I've had to do. The only challenge for me has been, I felt bad when you couldn't attend family events, or when you get tired in the afternoons or have to go to the doctor. I feel bad about all that. And that's how it's affected me more than anything about it. It hasn't held me back from anything from a academic standpoint, a social standpoint, or I've still been able to achieve things just like anybody else. It's really just been that feeling about considering how you're feeling. That's how it's affected me.
It's probably helped. Mom's attitude has probably helped you. If it hasn't made you hold back in any way or feel differently in any way, it's because Mom has treated this as, you know, the norm. You roll with the punches and you don't complain too much, and you just you do what you can. And maybe you feel that's inspired you a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you were saying about the MS Walk before is very true. To see everybody coming together to support their friend or relative, it truly is a inspiring event that takes place every year, and it's really just one representation of all the hope that people with MS have for someday being a cure, and for support at present. So absolutely, it's not impacted me, negatively, other than feeling bad for you.
Well, I know there's a story that I always tell, and it's a story that I'm sure you cannot remember. You were about 5 or 6 years old, and the MS Comprehensive Care Center that I went to was celebrating their 10th anniversary, and they were having a ribbon cutting ceremony. And I took you, and they had a lot of people there they had some local personalities there, and you were standing with me in the front, and I was holding your hand. There were a lot of people there. And there was one gentleman there who we knew as a family, and he was in a wheelchair, and his MS, unfortunately, was progressing. And a lot of times people in wheelchairs are overlooked because they can't keep up with the people that are standing and milling around. So the local personalities were giving out the awards to the center, and this gentleman in the wheelchair was sitting there by himself. And you suddenly let go of my hand, and you walked over there, and you climbed up into his wheelchair, and you sat in his lap. And his whole face just changed. He had a huge smile on his face, and you nuzzled against him. And I went home that day and told Dad that we were doing the right thing, that you saw no difference between ability and disability, that you knew that you just wanted to be with this person and make him feel better. And that was the path that I think that you started for yourself then. And it's exactly how you are now. And Dad's right. You just have inspired me to be able to be who I am. You've supported me in many ways, in bad times and good. And there have been many difficult times, as you know. There were times where I needed to have steroids intravenously, and a nurse would come to the house, and I would have to be hooked up to a pole for the day. And I made sure that I did that when you were at school, because I didn't want you to see me in that way. But then I realized that that's my reality. And even though you were young and I didn't want you to be shocked into seeing Mom like that, I also knew that on some level that someday you would see me like that, and you have. And you've been so courageous, and you've given me hope. And I think a lot of times when I do write about it, that it gives other people hope too, to see that there are those possibilities of having children where they can learn these kind of lessons, these important lessons. And so you, without knowing it, have shown other people that children can learn this, that it is possible. And so I thank you for that.
Thank you. It's interesting because the way I've always looked at it is everybody has challenges of some sort, whether it be financial, whether it be with physical ability. MS is just it's a challenge that affects an individual physically and sometimes emotionally. But we all have challenges. It's just that this one, MS, can be more challenging than some other illnesses and other conditions. But the important thing is that you have to really view everybody as fundamentally being the same. It's just another one of life's challenges, and that's really the only way to look at it, because it's true.
Kathy, your story about being hooked up to the IV for steroids also brings to mind the fact that as a caregiver, you take on a lot more responsibility, and sometimes it's frustrating. You do more shopping or cooking, what have you, than otherwise. And while I find that frustrating sometimes, I think one way to look at it, and I've tried to be very optimistic, that in the future, the care will get better and better. And when you were diagnosed in the 1980s, there was virtually no care. It was, you got steroids with all the, it's a temporary effect, temporary benefits, very bad side effects. And now, all these years later, we have so many different medications that have proven effective. And now even there's some medications for progressive patients. And I've always had that in the back of my mind, trying to be optimistic that eventually, as well as you've done on the medication, the injectable you've been on, eventually it's going to just be fantastic, and MS patients can live very, very close to a normal life, if not completely normal. I think that will happen eventually. And that's part of what keeps me going, gives me hope.
Well, I just want to pick up on something. I don't want our story to sound like it's all, perfect, and that we didn't have any struggles together and that it was all easy, because that's not true. And from my point of view, it's hard because the fatigue is so overwhelming at times, and I can't cook. When Jordan was young, I would cook every day, but now that I'm older, it's just not possible that, because you do the grocery shopping.
And you feel guilty about it
and
sometimes.
I feel
I
a
know
lot
that.
of guilt about it. I feel a lot of guilt about it. I feel a lot of guilt that, I couldn't do all the things with Jordan that I wanted to. I couldn't, go out with the other moms all the time like I wanted to. There's a lot of guilt, and you feel very overwhelmed and anxious, and you both pick up and help. But I know that you don't always communicate to me, but I know that it has to be difficult for you guys sometimes on some level, because you both have your own lives. You're both working, and Jordan's going to grad school too. So it's a lot to say, okay, we also have to take on some of Mom's responsibilities. And that's been very difficult for me at times to cope with, because I can't do everything that I want, and also do my professional life as well. So that part's been hard, but it does take a team, and I know that I'm blessed with both of you and being able to take that on. But yeah, it has been hard at times from my point of view. It has been hard.
Everyone is going to have their good days and their bad days, but I do think it's a function of who each family member is as a person, how the family works together and interacts. But I do think it starts with the patient, and from day one, you could have been a different person and taken a different attitude, but I think your positive attitude has just fueled everything in a successful direction, and I thank you for that.
Well, I think that, again, it's the support of the Comprehensive Care Center, and my first nurse practitioner that basically said that you can go out and have this great life for yourself. You have the makings for it. And she was just so supportive. She was a true cheerleader. And I think that I was so engrossed in those words that she was telling me. This is the first time that somebody was telling me that I'm able to have children, that go ahead, be a mom and have this great life. And that was extraordinary, because back then nobody was saying those words, and nobody was talking about that. And so that really stuck with me, and I've lived on that, and the hope for more research and for a cure, dare I say that, but for a cure that I pray for. But it starts with the family. It starts with having the support that you need. It starts with knowing that no matter what the dark days are, is that you guys always give me a safe place to fall. And I know that you'll always be there and hold me up. And that's extraordinary. You give me hope to be that better person that I want to be, and whatever setbacks that we might experience, that we can face it head on. I know that sounds so Pollyanna, but it's our truth. It is our truth. So
It is a little Pollyanna, but that's the choice to make. You can't make negative choices, otherwise the disease wins.
yeah, and that's it. You have two choices, and one's to give in and give up, and one's to keep fighting and be optimistic, and just look for great medical care, and just look towards your family for the help that you need. And I think that that's really the I'm not finding my word right now.
Okay, that's the message. Jordy, anything to add?
Well, it really does take a family, and certainly I'd like to think that, it sounds like you agree, Dad and I have pitched in when we needed to, and it's never been a burden on speaking for myself, it's never been a burden on me. Certainly the extended family has also pitched in, and I understand that some people aren't as fortunate as us, but I certainly hope that other families would be as understanding as Dad and I and my grandparents and uncles and cousins and whatnot. So I think the real message to other families should be that just try to understand the person who is suffering, and try to help them cope with it and live a full life.
Well said.
And that's a good point. It's the extended family has been very helpful. They've always been supportive from day one, and they've always tried to lift us all up when we needed it. And also good friends are also very, very helpful, and have also helped us whenever we needed it. If you guys needed a break, either the family or the friends were always there to help us. And that's very important to create a community of people that that you can rely on. And I think that has also helped us when we've needed it most. So
Everyone has a role.